The quiet between us, Ethan learned early that you could be surrounded and still be invisible. Every morning his alarm chimed at 6:10 a.m., soft enough not to wake anyone else. He lived alone in a shabby third-floor flat where the walls were thin and the city sounded like a distant crowd. He worked as a junior graphic designer at a media firm, competent, reliable, always there but rarely heard. His social feeds held other people's louder lives. He liked their posts, watched their stories, then put his phone down and returned to the quiet he had perfected. In high school, he had been nice, dependable, harmless, forgettable. Then Maya appeared in his life like a brightness he hadn't known he'd missed. She joined their class in the final year, laugh easy and eyes curious, and the first time she bent to help him pick up scattered notes, she said simply, "I like it." Those three words lodged in him. They talked, not the shallow chatter he'd learned to survive, but long conversations about books, playlists, and the absurd weight of future plans. Maya asked questions that opened rooms he'd kept locked. Ethan listened, carefully, adoringly, and kept his feelings small, like a fragile thing that shouldn't be named. He believed silence was safer than risking rejection. Lucas, Ethan's childhood friend, was loud in the way the world notices. He owned rooms and laughs. People turned toward him. Maya noticed Lucas. So did others. At first, Ethan convinced himself he was content to be their friend, to be important in a way that never required being chosen. Months slipped into years and the two of them grew closer in public. Photos, playlists, a gravity Ethan watched from the outside. After school, the trio scattered. Lucas and Maya moved to the city together. Ethan stayed, carried the quiet with him onto the bus every morning, into an office of glass that declared, "Your ideas matter" in frame fonts. His ideas did matter, sometimes, but meetings favored louder voices. His suggestions were often ignored until someone repeated them and took the credit. Then one evening, years after the notebooks, Maya messaged him. "Coffee," she suggested. That old nervousness curdled into hope. When she sat across from him in that cafe, she looked different, tired in ways the camera can't capture. But when she reached and touched his hand and told him, "I missed you," the old ache stepped forward. They began meeting more. Coffee bled into dinners, dinners into walks. People assumed more. They weren't wrong to wonder. Maya waited, flinched for the moment Ethan might name what she had quietly become in him. He hovered in his polite way, weighing risk like a ledger, and every time he chose silence, she took a step closer and then farther again. One night outside her apartment, she asked him a simple, terrifying question. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if things were different?" He said yes. She leaned in. He froze. Hesitation is a small, ordinary choice that can split a life cleanly. He did not move. She pulled back, hurt plain on her face. "I should go," she said and left. Silence collected like dust. Maya stopped reaching. Ethan told himself the old lines. "It's safer this way. Better to keep peace than make a scene." He told himself things to justify being quiet. Later he saw her smiling in another photo with someone else and felt the knife of regret sharpen. He had been important without being chosen. Now he was absent without reason. Then at 2:14 a.m., a message lit his screen. "Maya's sister. Ethan, I don't know who else to contact. Maya's in the hospital." The world tilted. A drunk driver, an instant that unraveled everything. At the funeral, people spoke about Maya's light and kindness and the ways she touched strangers. Ethan stood in the back, hands in his pockets, carrying all the words he had never spoken like a weight that might crush him. Loss has a clarifying cruelty. Things you fail to say become glaring in the silence they leave. Ethan replayed moments, cataloged omissions, cursed his own caution. He had thought reticence was virtue. It was cowardice that carried consequences. Years later, the alarm still chimed at 6:10. The apartment's paint still peeled. He kept a small notebook on the desk by the window, a deliberate, stubborn marker of change. On the first page, he wrote the sentences he had never let himself say aloud. Love doesn't wait forever. Silence is still a choice. Say it before the quiet becomes permanent. He began to act. In meetings, he raised his hand. When a friend laughed about something that mattered, he told them why their laugh was the best thing he had heard all day. He dated clumsily and told the people he met they were important in the language he had finally learned. Direct, awkward, earnest. None of these moves erased what had been lost. You cannot retrieve a person once gone, but he started to refuse the small death silence had been killing him with. The lessons were not tidy. He still woke sometimes to the old ache, the what if that arrived like a wave. But the notebook was there to steady him, to remind him that life's softest choices often shape the hardest truths. The city beyond his window remained loud and indifferent. That suited him now. He'd learned to meet noise with voice. Maya's absence taught him this. Being present is more than occupying space. To be present is to risk saying the thing that might change everything. To be present is to choose, to speak, to name the love or the praise or the anger, and accept uncertainty in return. On a slow evening, he walked past the cafe where she had once reached for him. He did not stop. Instead, he sat at his desk, opened the notebook, and wrote a letter to her he would never send. Not because it was pointless, but because finally the writing itself mattered. He closed the page and, for the first time in a long while, did not let silence answer for him.